Hello and welcome to the episode. So today I speak to Jules Wright. Jules is a life coach for women in their late 20s, early 30s who are feeling lost, stuck, or behind. Through her coaching, Jules helps women break free from societal pressures and connect with what they truly want. Her mission is to help women build clarity and confidence so that they can create lives that feel truly aligned, guided by authenticity, self-trust, and fulfillment, rather than external timelines or expectations. I love this chat with Jules. She shares her journey from a more conventional upbringing to embracing a life of fearless freedom. She discusses the pressures of societal expectations, particularly around success and motherhood, and emphasizes the importance of redefining success on one's own terms. Julia highlights the power of trusting mindset, gratitude, and also the role of coaching in personal development. So the discussion also touches on the significance of finding connection and belonging in a world filled with societal norms, and also the importance of manifesting dreams through both belief and action. So there's a lot of juice in this one, and I really hope you enjoy it. Welcome to Emerge. I'm Feeney, a breathwork teacher and somatic guide, and each week I share unfiltered conversations with people who've turned challenge into transformation. Come for the stories, stay for the wisdom, and leave with practices to support your own healing and growth. Okay, so welcome to the podcast, Jules. So lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here, and I'm so excited to have this chat with you.
Oh, I am so excited for this conversation. I know we don't know each other too well, but I find, as I was also saying a bit before the discussion here, that I find your Instagram, your work so inspiring, and your message. And to me, you really seem to embody this kind of freedom, this fearless freedom, this moving away from the traditional, conventional guidelines that we're all expected to live by. And you're really inspiring women to do the same and to really live their lives in their own way outside of those kind of generic boxes. And I'm really curious what shaped that way of being for you. Like, what was it that influenced you in this way? Was it your upbringing? Was it something else? I just really love to know what kind of created this way of being for you.
Well, it's funny because it definitely wasn't my upbringing. So my upbringing was very conventional. It was very much like, do the normal thing, get the normal job, follow the normal path. And then after university, I had this like feeling to go to Australia. And I told my parents it will be, just a couple months. And then I'll come back to London, get a 9-to-5 job, settle down. And then obviously I got to Australia and everything completely shifted. And that few months basically has turned into the last 9 years of not living in the UK and not veering back to the conventional path. So it was, obviously I didn't know that's how things were going to plan out. But I guess once I started to get that taste of freedom, it was really hard to give it up. And the last 9 years, I guess I've been traveling around the world, living in different countries. So in Australia and New Zealand and now Portugal, and meeting other people kind of on this similar path, that I felt like that was what I found inspirational. And that's kind of what aligned with my values and how I want to live my life. And of course, there were moments, there's family pressures, friends' expectations that were coming into my mind a lot. Like, you should be doing the normal thing. And when are you going to settle down? And all these other voices that I kind of had to just work on implementing a trusting mindset, and that, okay, I'm doing the right thing for me. And I'm choosing and creating my own version of success. And that worked out really well in my 20s. And then it wasn't until I got to 29 and I was back in London and I was around everyone doing a completely different life path to me. And they were very much, everyone was in long-term relationships whilst I was single. Everyone was thinking about buying houses, talking about job promotions. It was very like the mainstream. And my path suddenly felt very, felt like the wrong path. And then I had a complete freak out at 29, which we'll probably go into. But the reason for the conventional path, I guess, was, yeah, that once I got a taste of like this alternative way of living and this sense of freedom, it was very hard to give it up. And every time I did consider maybe going back to London and trying the kind of city thing, it was almost like the universe would send me a person who was struggling with burnout or anxiety, who had followed that path and then was having a massive freak out because it wasn't for them. And it was almost like I could live vicariously through these people to know actually this isn't going to be aligned with who I am and what I want. So I'm very grateful for the people that came to me along the way, like through yoga trainings or different communities that I lived in. And I could kind of connect with them and realize, no, actually come back to my center. Don't get distracted by the shoulds and the expectations and like recenter myself. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Wow, yes. It's so interesting as well. I feel like once you've had that taste, for a lot of people, once they've had that kind of taste of freedom or a different way of living, it's very hard to kind of go back to how you used to be. And I think for a lot of people, it's so scary to even make a leap of any kind to a life that is more in that way. And then once you have got that taste, it's very hard to kind of go back. So tell me about your freak out when you were 29. Tell me more about that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so that was, I guess it was winter and I was back in my parents' house. And like I said, everyone around me was on such a different path and I suddenly felt very behind. And all of my incredible experiences and hobbies and everything that I loved doing and all of my passions suddenly became tainted. And I felt like they weren't worth anything because I didn't have anything to show for them. I just had like a huge stack of journals, but I didn't have a house or loads of money and all the classical versions of success. And I started like comparing myself and looking at what everyone else had and what I didn't have. So very much coming into that scarcity mindset and feeling like I was in a place of lack. And during that time, all the voices around me were saying, okay, you've had your fun. It's time to settle down. My grandma said to me, in my day, you'd be on the shelf and things like this.
Wow, yeah.
I had all these voices. My friends were telling me, like, you're never going to find a partner or someone to ground with if you're not grounded. And like all these kind of different, opinions. Meanwhile, I had a really strong intuitive pull to go to Sri Lanka. And so I was kind of battling with my inner voice and everyone else's expectations. And then I trusted my intuition strongly because I was working with a coach at the time, actually, and I was journaling a lot. I'm a huge advocate for journaling. And I think once I redefined what success was for me, it was easier to like realign and like recenter with what I really want. And my version of success was never money. It was never being married, having a house, having a baby. I mean, those are things that I would like at some point, but it's like I don't need them right now to be fulfilled or to be happy. And my version of success is more around doing the things I love, having a positive impact on the world, being able to have beautiful connections with beautiful humans that I love. And when I made that decision to go to Sri Lanka, it was really funny because I went completely on a solo trip. I had no plan, knew no one, just one-way flight and just trusted. And in that first month, I launched my coaching business and I got 4 clients in the first month. So that was crazy, Aline. I wasn't expecting that at all. And then in the second month, I met my partner, who I'm now with, who was on my dream partner list. And I just felt like this all happened because I went like tuned into my heart and what I wanted and aligned with myself rather than giving in to the opinions around me. So it was a real kind of freak out turning point, it was like a crossroads, which really could have gone a different way. And that's why I think now I'm so passionate about helping people connect actually with who they truly are and what they truly want. Because when we compare ourselves, those external voices can get so loud that we completely lose our center. And I feel like that's the work we need to do, is like coming home to who we are and what we want. So that was a big, big shift.
Wow. Yes. And so it's so interesting what you say about when you are in alignment, the creativity and what can come through from that. And I think so often we're taught to just kind of keep pushing. And actually, it's like what we can end up doing when we are living in alignment versus when we're not is actually incredible. And it's so often, I think it's about having that trust, isn't it? That things will come through when we are in that space that feels true for us. And I think another thing that there's so many threads to pull on, but I think another interesting thing that you said as well was talking about what your version of success looks like. I think this is a
Mm.
big one for a lot of people because there is that societal conditioning of what is success. And immediately my go-to has always been, oh, money, because that's what's been indoctrinated to me, right? And when I started doing the similar work around this and being like, what actually is success like for me? And then it's a really good way to anchor yourself and remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, right? And I
Mm.
think for a lot of people listening, that would be really helpful. Like asking yourself, what does success look like for me? Redefining success. And so once you're very clear in that, it's very helpful to kind of come back to, right? Because you're going to get pulled away from it because there's everywhere in society is telling you what success is, what success isn't, the timeline of different types of success. And yeah, I think it's really, really valuable point there to like really, really redefine that. Are there any other ways in which you kind of come back to yourself when doubt creeps in, other than kind of remembering your version of success and stuff like that? What other things help you in that way?
Yeah, I think so. The average human has 60,000 thoughts per day, and 80% of those thoughts have a negativity bias. So, limiting beliefs, things like I can't do this, I'm stuck, I'm a failure, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. And 90% of them are repetitive. So we just have the same thoughts looping. And because of that negativity bias, we're more in our fear mode. And obviously, you probably do a lot of work around the nervous system and carving the nervous system. But that puts our nervous system on edge and we're in this fight or flight and we're in this fear mode. And that's our natural way of being. And then it's working of like how to move from the fear mode into the trusting mindset. And I think as having a coach and being a coach, I've done so much work on like trying to move out of the fear into the trust. And as well as journaling and using this version of success, it's also about when the thoughts come, becoming aware of them, observing them, and then trying to take a moment to like recognize them, stop, maybe breathe, and then replace with another thought. And the thing is, the brain doesn't know what's real and what's not. So it can't define what's reality and what's actually made up fiction. And so with these kind of negative limiting beliefs that come up, it can be useful to take a moment, breathe, and ask yourself, okay, is this actually true? Like, is this thought, or is this belief fact? And normally it's not. And, then we can say, okay, what's the evidence that it's true? And normally we probably don't have evidence to support it. And that's when we can then replace it with a more positive thought. And, even for instance, going on this podcast, I haven't been on a podcast before. So I was having these thoughts come up like, I don't think I can do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this enough. And like all the normal thoughts that come up. And then being like, okay, let them come, breathe, and then replace them with things that I do know. So also the trusting mindset loves to have evidence. So you can think about a time in your life where you actually have done something out of your comfort zone and you've achieved it and you've been proud of it. And okay, let's go back to that. That is evidence. That is like, I can take from that experience and I can use that to believe in myself and to trust. And I think all of this trusting mindset work is really helpful if you're doing it from a calm place. So that's, breath, grounding, journaling. Probably, probably know so much more about that than me, but it's like just going into that space of really believing. And I think the whole time along my journey of my 20s and now in my 30s, because you're doing such a different path to everyone else, I think often, there's a choice. We either want to be authentic or we want to be accepted. And it's normally easier to be accepted and to conform and be like everyone else because, okay, then that gives us a sense of validation. So going off piste is a bit more risky and a bit more scary, and it's maybe it's out of the mainstream. So you really need to build up that trusting mindset and that like inner belief in knowing, okay, that this is the right thing for me. It's not how everyone else is living, but this is what's right for me. And I think the trusting mindset is so, so important when you're kind of doing something out of your comfort zone or veering off. And I think it's been my biggest savior, really.
Wow. I'm sorry, but that was gold. All of what you just said, I feel like it's going to be so helpful for everyone listening, honestly. It's so interesting, isn't it? This whole, the things that we believe about ourselves and the fact that you would be thinking, oh, I don't know what I have, whether I'm good enough or whatever to talk on a podcast, whether I can't remember your exact words, but it's just so interesting because to me, I was like, as soon as I was kind of in your field, I was like, oh my God, I want to kind of step into your world a little bit more. I feel like you're so inspiring, there's so much to offer. And so, I was like, oh, I want to speak to her. And it's this evidence work is so important, isn't it? Because it reminds me of Byron Katie's work. She says similar things of like, first of all, checking, is this true? Where is the evidence for it? And for so long, I had the, we have these self-beliefs of, oh, I am this, I'm not good enough, blah, 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 and all the time with no evidence. And once you start to actually examine that, you realize, okay, there is actually not really any solid evidence for this. And it kind of, when I first did that work, I was like, wow, that is unbelievable how much that can shift. And it almost makes you feel, it's almost like a bit of a kind of disconcerting in a way, because you have these deep-rooted beliefs about yourself. I'm sure people listening as well, there'll be some beliefs that you have about yourself that you just take to be true. And when you start to examine them and question them, it's a bit of a mind fuck, because you're like, oh wow, all these things that I thought were so true my entire life might not actually be true. And it's kind of this mix of that's amazing, but also it's a bit like, whoa, everything I thought to be true actually maybe isn't necessarily true, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I think, like, again, that thing about the brain not identifying between what's real and what's not. Like, a lot of things in coaching, we learn about how our thoughts become our beliefs and our beliefs become our actions, right? So if we believe that we can do something, we're going to show up and we're going to do it. Whereas if we believe we're not good enough and I'm not worthy and I can't and I'm going to shut down, then, for instance, with this podcast, I could have let those beliefs take over and call you up and say, actually, I can't do it. Yeah. And then that's a direct link from our belief to our action. And then we hold back and we stay stuck. We stay in fear mode. That's why, like, I cannot talk or express how important our kind of inner voice is, and making that inner voice like a safe space. And of course, we're going to have them come up and fire at us in random moments when we feel a bit off. The fear brain is going to rise up, but it's like, okay, how quickly can I take a breath and then replace that with a positive thought, a trusting thought, a loving thought. And I guess for listeners, like, practices that can really help with that, I think, is coming back, if it's too much too quickly to leap to like telling yourself like I love you and things like this, like positive self-talk, is starting with gratitude. Like, gratitude can be such an amazing place to start, and focusing on all the things in your life that you are grateful for, because what that does is creates reward pathways in the brain. And so then you can kind of get into this state of abundance, and maybe you don't have everything right now, but you're looking at what you do have. And then you can build up gratitude that can turn into abundance. And then from that state, you can start to manifest and bring in new things. But I think so often as humans, we focus so much on what we don't have, what we're lacking, what other people have. And like that comparison, that pressure, that's what keeps us stuck and trapped. Actually, there's a nice analogy that with comparison, if you're looking through a camera and if you have like a wide angle camera lens, right, you're focusing on all the other things around rather than what's in the center becomes really small. And if you can change that wide angle lens into like a narrow zoom in focus, that's what we want to do with ourselves. We want to zoom into our own journey, into our own center, and focus on what we need to be happy, what we need to be fulfilled, what we're grateful for, what we have, rather than always looking elsewhere and externally. And I think also with social media,
Yes.
there's never been a more like ripe time for comparison. And I mean, especially in your 30s, where I don't think we've had a more contradictory decade than ever before, because, up until now, everyone was on kind of the same path. And now in your 30s, it's like very much a very different broad path. So narrowing that lens, coming back to yourself, coming back to your center, talking to yourself with love and kindness and compassion, and using that as the main focus.
Yes, this is just so much gold here. And it's so true. And it is also an ongoing practice, isn't it? Like, we obviously do a lot of work on ourselves, a lot of self-development, spirituality work, all this stuff. And it is continuous work, really, but it's so worth it. It's not like you can do talking to yourself nicely in a few times and that's going to change you forever. It is a continuous journey, right? But it is so worth it, and it does get easier. And it's incredible, really, where you can get to, because most of the time we are our own only limitations, I think. There's so much that is limitless, and we are the ones to kind of cage ourselves, imprison ourselves. And even you talking about coming on the podcast, me hosting the podcast, for so long I was like, what do I have to say? What are people going to be like? What is she doing a podcast? Who is she? And if I hadn't have been doing this constant work on my self-beliefs, limiting self-beliefs, mindset work, then I would never have done this, because I would be in that mind frame of, well, why me? What the hell should I start a podcast? And then I kind of changed it to, well, why not me? Why not me? And I think it's really, really powerful, everything you've just said. And I wanted to also ask about, kind of touch a little bit more on the time frame for women, and, for women who might feel pressured or behind on their timeline of when you should be doing what. I know you've already said a lot already about this topic, but is there anything that comes to mind that you would say to a woman listening who perhaps is feeling like, I'm like 30 or early 30s or late 20s, and all my friends are having with partners, or they've had a baby, and I'm so behind. What is it from your own experience and the journey that you're on? I mean, even just going to Instagram, people will probably feel better, but is there kind of what comes through as a message to say to that woman?
Yeah, I think a huge thing is that we are all unique beings, and we all should embrace our unique paths, right? And so much we're trying to squeeze ourselves into this one size fits all approach. We should all be settled, married, babies by 30. And if you're ahead of that, you feel like you're too young. And if you're behind, you feel like you're too old. And it's kind of crazy that we've created a world where we all think the same things can happen to us at exactly the same age. I mean, it's just wild when you actually think about it. I think the biggest thing is acceptance. So like accepting where you are right now, like really accepting, okay, this is where I'm at, and like centering, focusing on where you are. Again, building up gratitude. It's so important to be grateful for what you do have, to get into that kind of abundance mindset. And then also, I think realigning with, do you actually really want what those people have? And maybe you do. And comparison can be useful, because it can be kind of, I guess, an indicator to what you want. Maybe if it really is to be married with a baby, okay, that is what you want. Let's think about working towards that. And manifesting, I really believe in manifesting. I think it's amazing. I think it's definitely amazing. I think it's definitely amazing to manifest when you like have a calm nervous system. So you're grateful for what you have, you're working on feeling calm, you're in acceptance, then you can start to cool things in. But when you're in that place of fear and scarcity, it's very hard for your whole body to believe, that you can get those things, that you're worthy of those things. And I think I listened to something that was saying with manifesting, it's good to have 50% is manifesting and 50% is aligned action. So, if you want to find your dream partner, and you're up in your room and you're meditating, you're journaling, you're writing it all down, but you don't leave the house,
Yeah.
you're not gonna meet your dream partner. So, okay, 50%, let's think about it, let's visualize, let's believe that we're worthy of it. And then 50%, let's put ourselves in the places where that might happen. Let's join up to new, I don't know, interests or hobbies or like places where that could be possible. And I think that's a really important part that often gets missed in this whole manifesting world
Mm.
is like, okay, the action as well. And as a coach, obviously we work a lot on like the action and the product, like the steps people can take to get them there.
Yes. Oh my God. Absolutely. I feel that. It's like so many people do seem to think that, you sit in your room and you manifest and then everything
Yeah.
comes to you, but it is both, isn't it? And then things really do start to happen. And it's so challenging, isn't it, in terms of like I'm 36 and I remember thinking at 30, oh my goodness, like I'm so behind and all of these things and fear and I'm old and I'm this and I'm that and I don't have much time and what if I want to have children and what if I want to meet someone and now even 6 years later I'm like, oh my God, 30 is so young.
Yeah.
It's like that hindsight that you get and you're like, God damn it, if only we could have that at the time because it's like, wow, 30 is so young. And 46-year-old is probably looking at me and being like, oh, I went on a walking holiday with my dad recently, so random. And it was like, it was a tour. And I was the youngest person by at least 20 years, but like mostly 30 years. And I was the baby of the group. And they were like, oh gosh, you've got your whole life ahead of you. You're so young. You're a baby. And I'm just like, oh, we need that perspective more often, right? Because it's so easy to get lost and think we're old when we're so young.
Yeah, it's so true. And I had such a similar experience recently because I was talking to my granny who's 90. Both of my grannies are
Mm.
actually 90. And that's 60 years until I reach 90, right? So it's
Oh,
two more rounds of what I've done. And it feels like a lifetime ago that I was like a baby. Like that feels
yeah.
so long ago that when I have that perspective, I'm like, wow, we actually have so much time. And I think this idea that we're constantly running out of time, that is really not helpful. And actually, that made me think of I found a journal entry from myself when I was aged 11. And I had written in my journal that my dream is to become an actress, but it's too late now because I'm too old. And I was 11. I was 11 and I could have become a famous actress and I didn't because of that limiting belief, and that starts being implemented at that age, which is just wild. So, yeah, I love what you said of that we need to be around it can be helpful to be around people who are much older than us because it gives us perspective rather than just hanging out with 20-year-olds and feeling like an old granny.
Looking on social media, all these 20-year-olds like looking perfect, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so
totally. Oh
true.
my God. Also thinking about journaling. So you obviously journaled from a young age. What kind of,
Yeah, it's what I
yeah.
found, um, the journal from when I was 11, and then I think I started again kind of sporadically 18 onwards, but then I think when I was 22, when I went to Australia, that's when journaling became pretty much a daily practice. And it's so funny because whenever I go back to my parents' house, I get into my treasure box full of journals, and pretty much everything I've written in my journals has come true, and that's why I'm, like, the
Wow.
biggest advocate for manifesting. So many different things have aligned, and I think that was also a useful biomarker for me of, like, when I was comparing myself to other people's version of success, I never wrote in my journal, that I need a big fancy house and a car and a promotion and a husband and a baby. I've never, ever written that. That's never been what I've, wanted for my future. Like, so I think it's so good to get into that practice of writing down what you want. It's really, really helpful. Um, and I also say to people, be careful what you wish for because my ex-boyfriend was really anti-surfing and he hated surfing. And it was so annoying. So then in my manifesting dream partner list, I was like, he has to be a surfer. And now I've got this boyfriend who is all he does is talk, breathe, sleep about surf. And I was like, wow, I should have put in brackets, likes it, but not obsessed.
Yeah, you have to be so specific, don't you?
Yeah. And so I always say to people, be careful and like actually like go dive deep into what you really want because, yeah, otherwise you can end up with what you thought you wanted.
Yeah, completely. It's so funny because I also wanted to be an actress and I also
Um,
started journaling at really young age. And I do exactly the same thing as you. When I go back to my dad's house, I go and look at all my old journals, and it's something I think I'll do forever. Partly, obviously, because it's very helpful in getting your thoughts down and working things out, and kind of that stream of consciousness is very helpful in the moment. But also the going back and getting an insight into the world of, an 11-year-old, or maybe if someone starts journaling now at the age of 30, then, when they're 60, looking at through the lens of the 30-year-old mind and experience is just like, it transports you back in a way that you can't really get when you're just loosely remembering something, right? So yeah, I would really recommend to anyone who hasn't journaled to start doing it. Um, and yeah, it's crazy to me going back to this, like the timeline thing and what is kind of expected. And what always I find, I don't know what you think about this, but I always find so astonishing is that I'm unsure about, and I've done a lot of thinking about whether I want children and whether that's the right path for me. And the amount of people who were so shocked that I would even question it, so shocked that it's like, why would you not? Yet bringing a human being into the world is like probably the biggest thing you could ever do. And it comes with so much responsibility and so much, you gotta really love and be responsible and make sure you can really offer everything to this child. Yet it's so presumed that, oh yeah, everyone's just going to have them, and it's strange if you don't have them. But it's like, but hang on, does anyone not realize like how much it takes to raise a child? Like, shouldn't we be at least asking ourselves, is this the right path for us? And like, are we going to be able to bring everything to this child that we need to? What do you think about that?
yeah, I think that is so true. It's almost the biggest decision that we will make in life, and we don't even stop to check in with, do I actually want that?
Yeah.
And the same when we talk to other people, we just expect, there are women, they're in their 30s, they should want that, without asking, is that something that you want? I actually just finished reading a book called Olive. Have you read that book?
I read that. Oh my God, I just got tingles. Yeah, I just read it. Well, I listened to the audiobook actually, yeah, like a few months back.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, so I just finished reading that book. It was all about a woman who, yeah, doesn't want to have children, and she is trying to navigate that around her three best friends who are all very much either have children or are struggling to have them. And she's kind of navigating feeling very isolated in her 30s because of it. And I think, yeah, it's so important that we don't just rush into these decisions and we actually take time, to reflect on it. Is that something that I want? And if it's not, people becoming more aware to accept that decision from people,
Yeah.
because that should be a woman's choice rather than an expectation.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. And also to think about like what my life would look like if I did have children, but also what could my life look like without, and what could I do instead, and what other things could I bring into my life? What other things could I, create in a different way as well and work towards? And I think it's very scary for people, right? Because it's not the norm to decide not to have children. Obviously, we're not
Mhm.
talking about fertility issues, that's kind of a separate thing. But the decision of, I'm not going to have children, that's not the path for me. It is trodden, but it's not very well trodden, like how many people do you know who've had children, older women versus who haven't from their own choice? And so it is scary in a way to be like, well, what could my life look like? And rather than looking at it as like oh, I'm not going to have anyone to look after me when I'm old, which is the classic one, isn't it? Or I'm going to be lonely, or my life
Mhm.
is going to have meaning. What am I going to do with my life? It's like, well, what else could be in that place? Like, what possibilities can open up, yeah, in that space? So obviously there are lots of different possibilities that come with having children, but there's lots that come with not having them as well, right? So it's like, thinking in that way about if someone is curious about whether they want to have children or not, rather than just going straight into the like, oh my God, I'm really lonely, all those messages that we're taught, right? If we and then we're told that children are the answer and otherwise you'll be lonely and whatever. It's like, okay, well, let's look at the other possibilities as well. And you might choose to have them, you might choose not to have them, but having yeah, not going into that sort of lack fear mindset we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, our generation is almost the first generation to have this choice.
Yeah.
And a lot of the expectations on being a woman in their 30s is now outdated because, the reality is a lot of us can't meet the expectations of, their generation above. And it's not as easy to have a house. Maybe, like, I think it's only 50% of women are now entering their 30s with a child. Only 30% are married. Like, everything is shifting.
Yeah.
And we need to ask ourselves the questions of, like, okay, it's actually okay to break out of the conventional path if it's not right for me. And everything you just said, I think it's checking in with yourself and really making time to check in because yeah, you can't go back from that decision. I mean, I'm sure you'll love your child, whatever, but it's like once you make the decision, you're committed. So maybe spending a bit of time, like, with yourself, whatever practice that is, of really asking, is this something I want, or am I doing this because my mum thinks I should do it, because my friends are doing it, because society expects it of me? And then, it's coming back to that canceling out the external noise and tuning in. Um, and I think within us, we always have the answer. It can just be clouded by the external.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so ingrained, isn't it? It's so, and then it often that what comes up or what came up for me before I started to like get a bit curious around the subject was, oh, well, also when I was younger, it was never if you have children, it was when you have children. My mum would always say to me, oh, when you have children this, when you have children that. And there was never an if.
Mhm.
And I was always, yeah, for me, it was always like when I do it, or I always just thought I would. That was the thing. It's like when I started to get curious, it's like, oh my God, I just always thought I would, but maybe it's just like that's what's so ingrained in you, right? So I think yeah, it's a very powerful and important conversation to be had and to keep having because there are still, even though the pressures aren't as big for women, I feel it all the time. All my friends have children, like it's still very much there for women. And in a way that it is definitely not there for men. So yeah, it's really important to keep having that conversation, right?
And I guess, like, a question for you is, how would you like your friends to approach you with that topic?
Mm. Within the topic of like asking me whether I want children or
Because
mm.
obviously they have children. I'm thinking about, like, maybe listeners who are in that place of, like, being uncertain and not being sure, and everyone around them, the friends just expecting of, like, maybe how can we bring more awareness for other people not to have just these expectations and to actually give them space to voice what they need and how they feel about things.
Yeah. Gosh, that's yeah. It's so important. I feel like people just being more interested in other facets of your life as well that you're doing, like it be celebrating your things that you're doing on your work, your things you're creating or what other areas of life. I think kind of celebrating that is really important. And that's what I notice some of my friends really do, which I love, and it feels so special because I know their world. They might have some of them have 3 children, and there's so much like their whole not their whole lives are babies, but like a lot of their life is their babies, right? It kind of should be if
Mm,
they've got 3 kids. Um, but I really appreciate it when they make all the stuff that's going on in my life really important as well, and they kind of take the time to remember, and they're like, "Oh god, that must have been a really big deal for you," and it's really, really appreciated, and whereas you notice sometimes when other people don't do that so much, and yeah, I think for anyone who's considering not having them or having them, it's like, yeah, what else can you focus on bringing into the world? What else? Because creativity doesn't have to just be creating a child, right? There's so many different things that we can birth and bring into the world. So yeah, but is important for people to know, like how to, um, yeah, how to be mindful around this subject, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's such a, I feel like for our 30s, for all women, it's challenging. For women who have children, it's challenging because, first of all, obviously, it's a lot of responsibility, but there's also so many pressures that come with it. There's so many differing opinions on how you should raise a child, and then of course, it's like grappling with the identity of now not just being yourself, you've also got the identity of mother and what that brings. And then women who are struggling with their fertility or who maybe can't have children, that's obviously incredibly hard to see other people everywhere doing it, constantly plastered over social media. For those of us who aren't sure, or for those who don't want, then it's like there's this sense of feeling left out, like you're part of this. You're no longer connected to all your friends in the same way. They're all suddenly part of this club that you're not in, and
Mhm.
feel very isolating. So it's a challenging, really challenging time for women. And I think the 30s are amazing, but there's also something that I wasn't really told about, which was this whole navigating this which there are lots of ways to go about it, and yeah, just supporting each other and keeping open dialogue, I think, is very important, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I love what you said about, not just celebrating marriage and rings and babies, because that can make people feel so isolated and left out and behind. And that's such a common theme, what you just mentioned with my clients. If they're the only one in a friendship group where everyone else has children, they feel so isolated, and it's really challenging. And so maybe, sometimes we have to explore, okay, they need to find maybe new friends that they can really
Yeah.
relate to and resonate with and be in the same phase of life with, because it's really hard if you go and meet up with your friends and they're all just sharing baby stories and you just sit there feeling like a completely left out. Um, so I think it's really important for those friends to recognize that and celebrate other parts of their lives, and then also maybe thinking about exploring where you can meet like-minded women who are at a similar chapter to you, so that
Mm,
you feel a bit more connected. And as humans, we need to feel this sense of belonging and connection. It's like the most
yes.
important part of being a human. I think when
Yeah,
our 30s send
survival.
us in different directions, then we can feel so alone. So it's how do we kind of bridge the gap and find people that help us feel connected and like we belong?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's like, obviously those friendships, hopefully you'll still have with your friends who have children, but it is also, as you say, about finding other people you can connect with that maybe don't or have other things going on, because yeah, belonging is so important. I mean, we need it for, like, it's so wired into our system for survival, right? If we didn't have that belonging, or we weren't kind of in the group, then we opened ourselves up to potentially death. So it does sometimes feel like that when we don't feel like we belong somewhere, right? It feels so kind of visceral and um kind of scary in the system. So yeah, kind of finding those spaces where you might join a club, or like something where there's something that's like-minded people there, will be really helpful. So you just mentioned, what you talk about with your clients, or sometimes that you discuss. As we're coming to the end of our conversation, it always kind of flies by. I'd love to know a little bit about, where people can find you, what specifically you're kind of working on, whether it's one-to-one, whether you do coaching programs, all those kinds of things. I'm sure people would love to hear.
Yeah, so people can find me mainly through Instagram, and I think that you'll add the link below.
Yeah, I should do, yeah.
Yeah. Great. And I normally work with clients on a one-to-one basis for around 3 months. And 3 months is a really amazing time to kind of let go of old habits, bring in new habits, and really spend time at the beginning diving deep into what we really want. And then coming back to that manifestation and that alignment of like putting things in place that we want and actually having someone support and hold you accountable to go after them. And I actually currently have some slots open for my one-to-one, so if anyone is interested, it would be amazing to have new clients on board. And yeah, it's such an amazing thing working with the coach. And I think when I was in that 29 freak out, having my coach was my anchor, because it just helped me like have 1 hour a week of just coming back to myself. And that can really help with this tuning in to who you are, what you want, this alignment. And, how many times do we tell ourselves, oh, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z tomorrow? And we never do, because we don't have the accountability. So it's having that other person that is like unconditionally supporting you, but also holding you accountable. And I mean, I also have my own coach, and I think it's the most amazing thing in the world. And I think that's what inspired me to become a coach.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think Instagram would be the best way. And if not, by my website, which would also maybe be in the link below.
Yes, also in the link below. Yeah, and I can really speak to how amazing it is to have a coach. It's like having
Mm,
someone, really unconditionally in your corner who, has a lot of experience and a lot of trainings in helping you in what you're looking for, and also that accountability is just so, it's how
mhm,
often do we, as you say we're going to do something, and then it's like, oh well, especially if you're an entrepreneur or something where you work more for yourself, so easy to just, oh, no one's going to know. No one will really know if I don't do this thing. Like, I can maybe watch, another episode of that, whatever, and it doesn't matter. So having that coach, someone in your corner, someone
mm.
to help guide you, someone to keep you accountable. And yeah, hopefully some of you guys will loved, I'm sure, what Jules has said, and yeah, check her out. So thanks so much, Jules. It's been wonderful to have you here. And yeah, speak to you soon.
Thank you so much. Honestly, could have spoken all day about these topics. So thank you.